Okay. There you go. All right. So
let's do it.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. So there's still one extra person, Adash.
Hello.
Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are. I recognize some of your names, so welcome for this hands-on session that we organized today around Exalate Scripting. So I'm Francis, in case we didn't meet before. I'm a product manager for Exalate and also co-founder at Hidalgo. And next to me, we have Majid. Majid, just present yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Majid, and I'm working remotely from Pakistan today. I might have seen you in the Scripting 101, but if not, I'm a pre-sales engineer at Hidalgo. I joined the company 3-4 months ago and have been enjoying every minute since then. So nice to meet you all today.
All right. Next to that, we have Nola and Manoush in the background helping out doing this session. It's a bit of an experiment that we will do. I will start sharing my screen now. The session is recorded, so in case that some things need to be repeated later on, that will be possible. Okay. So there we go. Share screen. And if everything is okay, you guys should be able to see my screen now. Okay. So Exalate Scripting 102, and this is a follow-up on the Scripting 101. And it has been organized on request of different people who asked, okay, 101 was really basic. Could you elaborate a bit on the capabilities of Exalate and how you can do particular use cases? And so that's why we composed this webinar, where we will have an hands-ons or an interactive way of presenting these capabilities. Yeah? So the agenda of the session today is together, we will set up an environment where you have like Exalate set up between ServiceNow and Jira. Yeah? We will set up a development environment. So each of you will have to set up a development environment. And now I will be explaining how that works. Then once that this has been done, we will set up a connection between ServiceNow and Jira, ensure that everything is working as it is configured in basically. And then we will use a trigger to automate the Exalate operation so that whenever an incident belongs to a certain assignment group, that incident is then automatically sent over to Jira itself. And then we will start diving into the configuration of the connection, initially with a very simple setting up the correlation ID, and we'll be explaining in a moment what that will be. Then comment visibility, and then lastly, status orchestration, depending on how far that we get into this webinar. As I said, it's a bit of an experiment and to see at what pace we can proceed, because it's based on you implementing the different exercises. That's one. Secondly, it's also assuming that you have been using Exalate before and that you have some understanding of of configuring a configuration. Okay. So Nola. It's Nola, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Hi, everyone. Lola here from the Exalate team. And I'll just give a very quick intro as to how this is going to go with the rooms. For this training, we will be splitting all participants into 2 smaller groups using breakout rooms. And the breakout rooms will have the name of our instructors. That's Francis and Majid. So there's the Francis room, and then there's the Majid room. And if you have any questions during the process, please ask in the chat window in the bottom panel on your Zoom screen, and the instructors will get to you as fast as they can. And then there's an icon where it shows this will let you know when we will ask everyone to join the breakout rooms. Also, when you're joining back into the main room, which is where we are right now, because the session is being recorded, you might need to click on the Got It button, just so that you can join the room and accept the recording. All right, back to you, Francis.
Okay. So okay, right there. So apparently the slide was blocked.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know. All right. Okay, so next slide is what's the environment looking like? This environment is based, as I said before, on a ServiceNow. This ServiceNow is running the latest version of ServiceNow itself. It's called San Diego. It has not been released yet, but we've been experimenting and to ensure compatibility between Exalate and ServiceNow itself. But it's the UI is slightly different from other ServiceNow environments, but well, they improved a lot on the UI itself. The functionality is quite the same. So if you've never been using ServiceNow, we will, Majid and myself, we will help out to find a way to do whatever needs to be done. It's an issue tracker. It's a database application with the UI. It's maybe not providing a lot of respect to it. It's a good system, but in the end, as an issue tracker, you have a couple of functionalities like setting fields and adding comments, adding attachments, which is pretty similar to other environments like Jira or Zendesk with GitHub and so on. Yeah, so you will get access to this ServiceNow server. We will provide you the credentials and the link in a moment. And next to that, there is an Exalate app deployed on the server on Exalate Cloud, which is connected to that ServiceNow instance. Also there you will get the link. And with that, you can access the configuration of the Exalate on the ServiceNow side. Yeah. And on the other side of the connection of the pond, you will have a Jira data center, not server, data center, where Exalate has been deployed and as an add-on. And there you will be able to access the configuration also. Yeah. So the links, so the training environment, and I believe that Manoj has been providing the links in the Zoom chat. So open the Zoom chat. There you will find the login information, like the user ID is student. That's for everyone the case. And the password is B3RMUD4, and then capital B and then the exclamation point. Then the ServiceNow instance itself is the VEN 03946 on ServiceNow. And the link below that is the link to the Exalate for ServiceNow itself. On Jira, it's simpler because Exalate is running in the context of the instance itself. You can access this on the trainingblue.exalate.net. Okay, any questions here? So let's move on. On the next slide is, so whenever you do the development of a synchronization configuration, context is really, really important. It's really important to know if you're on the ServiceNow side or if you're on the Jira side, or that you are looking at a certain property of an incident, or that you are looking at an error. So what we do advise is to set up your development environment in such a way that it is easy to jump from one context to another. Like here, you can, like in Chrome, you can have like Chrome groups, and in every Chrome group you can have a number of tabs, and each of the tab could be, like on the Jira side, it could be an issue. The connections tab, where you can edit your connection. Sync queue, where you can look at the behavior of the synchronization. You can have the triggers tab, where you can configure the triggers, and then the error tab to see whenever something goes wrong, what the potential reason is for that. And you can do the same on the ServiceNow side. And you can have there on the ServiceNow side an incident, and as you can see, I need to log in again. You can have the connections tab, where you can edit the connection itself, the sync queue, the entity sync status, this entry, which allows you to start a synchronization in a manual way, and then the errors. Yeah. So by having these tabs neatly arranged, it is easy to jump, for instance, from one issue to the other issue and back. So let me log in here for a moment. You can log in with the credentials provided by Manoush. There we go. All right, and then, okay, now that's being said. So in the first breakout, where you will, we will go into the breakout rooms, and then we want to be sure that you have your development environment fully set up. And then once that this is the case, you will set up a connection between ServiceNow and Jira. During the setup of that connection, you will have to specify a name of the connection. We suggest that you use your own name so that it is easy to separate out your connection from the connection created by your co-student. And then you will create an incident on ServiceNow and sync it to Jira using the entity sync status approach. And then lastly, you want to be sure that the sync is working as expected by adding comments, attachments, and see that everything is what you would expect. So here you will see 15 minutes. We spent like 15 minutes on this exercise. So let's go. So Nola will now transfer everyone to the different meeting rooms.
Yeah, in just a few seconds, you get a notification asking you to join either of the rooms. One is Francis and one is Majid.
Right. I think that the Majid's room is still focused on things coming. Share my screen again. Yes, share.
So Francis, a couple of people had a little bit of trouble completing it, but I think mostly everybody was able to at least create a connection and sync one entity over.
Yeah, you can also see here, and it is on the sync, like Giovanni is here. Did it right, but also you can see some did like a basic connection.
Yeah, so maybe you can ask whoever did the basic to like create it again.
Yeah, so I believe there was one person in my group who already created the scripted connection.
Cool.
So is everybody back from the breakout room? I guess so.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so so the breakout result is, I think that everybody succeeded in the goals is to set up your environment, set up your development environment, set up a connection, and try out the synchronization of an incident. And so we can refresh here. If I go here, you can see there are plenty of it. All right, very well. Congrats. Normally you would get a piece of chocolate. The next thing is
Francis, you're muted.
yeah, so someone muted everyone. All right. So the next thing is, so you've then synchronized an issue manually by entering the incident ID in either the entity sync status or in the when you establish the connection. The next step is to automate the creation of or to automatically escalate an issue or an incident whenever appropriate. So as a suggestion is that we use following filter, that we create a filter on ServiceNow where you have the assignment group being application development, and then also to be sure that we can distinguish between the different students, that as an additional condition in your filter, you specify your name, and then you copy the filter query. I will show you how you do this. So if you click on, for those who don't know ServiceNow, if you click on the show height filter, here you can specify, for instance, a short description here, and starts with, in my case, Francis. In your case, it would be Majid or Manush or and so on. And the assignment group is, and then you can look it up, application development, okay? And then you run it, okay? And once that you have done that, you can copy the query by right-clicking this thing and copy query, yeah? So that would be then this setup. Then you can create trigger through the trigger interface in the Exalate console. And then you can validate that it's working correctly by creating a couple of incidents, setting the assignment group to application development, and entering a short description preferably starting with your name. I do see there's no naming conflict, so that should work. Okay, so let's get back into the breakout rooms for 15 minutes, and so that you have time enough to either finalize the connection or to set up the trigger and create a couple of incidents.
Cool.
Alessandro was saying something, and then
That's
Yeah.
fine. We'll look at it later.
okay, all right. So it seems that things go well. So if you have any feedback already to give on the pace of the course and so on, then please do so. I'm going to share my screen again. Sec. So what I've seen, look at it. All these triggers have been created. What I found out is that some triggers are overlapping, so that some incidents get created and then escalated towards two Jira issues, and that's what we call the fan out situation, where you have one linked with multiple entities or multi-twin. And so whenever there's an update on the incident, for instance, that update will be pushed to all the connected Jira issues, which is fine. But if there's an update from a Jira issue, that will ripple through to all the other Jira issues over that one incident. It's a bit more advanced use case, and really interesting use case can be implemented with this thing. All right. Good. So the result, we've seen it, how it works. Any questions about this? Something in the chat?
The way it is written seems weird, but as long as it is working,
So what do you mean?
it's just a bit weird to read, but at long as it is working, it's okay.
You mean the trigger?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
that's ServiceNow. That's it's a good remark, because if you look at this query in Zendesk, it's completely different, because Exalate will then use the Zendesk query language, and you do have the same in Jira, where you would use the Jira query language. Yeah, so every tracker has its own query language, and the triggers will adapt to that environment. And then, oh yeah, in our Salesforce, in Exalate for Salesforce, we take the first steps in providing a UI to establish these triggers, so that you can specify if the assignment group is this, and then that trigger will then behave the same. Okay. All right. Next, and there was a question from Harj: is how can we populate the correlation ID? And hopefully we can get into it quickly. So the exercise is to update the correlation ID, which is a ServiceNow field, which can contain something like the Jira issue key. Yeah. And also in this exercise, we want to put to populate the correlation display with the issue URL. And the reason why is whenever you have an incoming sync script, there you have a complete context that you can use for your implementation of your synchronization. Again, let's spend some time to implement this use case. So we'll go back into Breakout and provide comments there. Nola? Okay, thank you, Nola. So how did this go for you guys? Put some reaction, something like the or something. Oops.
Still chasing it.
All right. Do you need some more time?
Yeah, I think a couple of people in my group got it perfectly. A couple were nearly there, and one or two just were struggling a little bit with the time.
Okay. Yeah, so we have 4:10. Because Jordan, for you, it's a piece of cake, right?
Yeah, problem is I got a call in the middle of the thing, so I'm listening with one ear, but I know exactly how to do it, so no problems.
All right. So, well, now I'm a bit hesitating. Let me just share my presentation again. So the fun part, well, is this is pretty straightforward. It's also one of the reasons why customers are using Exalate. It's because it provides a consistent API over different issue trackers. Because if you would do this with Azure DevOps, it's similar. Of course, it will not be called correlation display. It would have a specific custom field, but setting the custom field is always the same. All right. So should I move on? Majid, you are.
Sorry. I would say yes, because the next exercise kind of like starts everyone from scratch, from creating a new ticket. So I think we would spend longer time in that doing it. It'd be good practice.
All right. So the next thing is, so now you know how to set the correlation ID and display using this settings, but you also needed to automatically start a transaction. No, again, you had to start a transaction by modifying the twin issue so that the correlation ID could be updated by the incoming sync script. Yeah. So so it will not be automatic. And what we will do in this exercise is to automate it so that whenever you have an incident that you escalate towards Jira, once that Jira issue has been created, that the correlation ID and display are updated automatically. Okay, so the question is, how do you do this? Yeah? Now, if you look at how Exalate's synchronize information, you have like this phase that Exalate will pick up an incident from ServiceNow form a message using the outgoing sync scripts. That message, which is called replica, will be sent from the Exalate for ServiceNow to the Exalate for Jira. And there, the incoming sync script will apply the change onto the issue or create an issue itself. Now, of course, once that issue has been created, you want to be sure that the issue key that results from that creation operation gets sent back to the ServiceNow side. And that's for which you would use the sync helper.sync back after processing. Sync helper is one of the helper methods that Exalate provides to simplify the implementation of the different use cases. So if you go to the documentation site, and we'll provide a link to the documentation site, there you will find a number of helper classes like sync helper, node helper, comment helper, attachment helper, with a number of methods to simplify the integration between the two sites. Yeah. Now, what we will do during this exercise is to ensure that whenever a Jira issue is created, then the issue key is sent back so that the correlation ID and correlation display can be updated. Okay, so let's give it a try. So you will have to really think about, I have an incident, it will go from ServiceNow over Exalate to Jira, and whenever that has been created, that information needs to be synced back towards ServiceNow. Yeah. So let's jump into the breakout rooms and go from there. Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So a couple of us managed to get this up and running. So the thing is, and that's why context is so important, that you try to follow these synchronization transactions and see how the things work. And it's a bit of a complexity, but it's important to well understand how things work to be able to start synchronization. Also, knowing how the underlying platform works is important. What the different fields are and what the possibilities are. Yeah. So, are there any questions? Let's move on then. So you've seen this by adding it, the sync back after processing in the first sync. So I hope that you understand why the incoming sync and not the outgoing sync. And secondly, why only first sync? So the first thing why incoming sync is that you have to trigger the new sync transaction once that the issue has been created, and you know that the issue has been created if you do the incoming sync from ServiceNow. And why only first sync? Because you can imagine that if you have a sync back after processing on both sides, yeah, you could like have this ping pong thing where both sides will start sending messages all the time, and that can create some problems. Also, loops can happen, for instance, if you have two connections and connection A creates an issue on B, on Jira B, and then that issue creates a new issue on Jira A. And so that would then create like many different issues. And we had a customer that set up a loop by accident, of course, and ending up with thousands and thousands of issues created automatically. So you have to think a bit.
So Francis, can you, sorry, can you elaborate a little bit about the last part, about why only first sync? Like what happens if you have that line outside the first sync block? What exactly happens?
So if you do it outside of the first sync block, then depending on the logic of your incoming script, then your sync back after processing will be called for every incoming message. So you don't want to have that in many cases. You just want to have it once, or maybe you could have it like if your Jira setup is modifying the issues in such a way that you want to carry over these modifications automatically to the other side. Yeah. So, but in general, you only do it on the first sync because you want to transport the results of the creation only once.
Thanks.
All right, and I think this will be probably the last exercise. Well, depends on how fast that we move on. This exercise is about comment visibility. What's comment visibility? So all issue tracking systems have comments that can be seen by customers and comments that are restricted to certain groups. And you can imagine that you have like a Jira project where you have comments that only the developers are allowed to see, and then the other comments that can be seen by other people, like customers. Yeah. So comment visibility is a feature fully supported by Exalate. And as an exercise, we will synchronize work notes, which is the name of internal comments on ServiceNow side, to restricted comments on the Jira side. And it will, public comments will then become public comments on Jira. Now you might ask yourself, how do I restrict comments on the Jira side? That's just, you can specify the group level or the role level of a comment. And there you can say, well, only the administrators can see this comment. And you do this by setting the role level to administrators. Yeah. So we will show that into the breakout. We'll take good 15 minutes. Yeah. Which almost leads us to the top of the hour. Okay. All right. Is everybody back?
Yeah.
All right. Very well. We are almost at the top of the hour. If you now look at the, we still had a bit of content left to exercises to do.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile to have a look how to do these things in a separate, well, on your own, and that's status orchestration. It's documented on the documentation side. It's all possible, but of course you have to well understand the context, where is what information being formed, sent over, and so on. So, for instance, this exercise says, okay, you have whenever you escalate an issue, that escalates that towards a Jira. And whenever that is closed, that Jira issue is closed, the original ServiceNow incident is then resolved. Then you can, it may make more advanced that whenever you have, you need comments to be provided by the customer, you can move the status of the Jira issue to action required. And this will change the state on the ServiceNow side from escalate to on hold, so that the customer knows that they have to do something. And once that they did that and provided the required information and changed the status of the incident back to escalate, then automatically the issue goes back to waiting for development. It's a kind of advanced use case. It's kind of fun to do, because you have to take into account quite a bit of business rules imposed either by the Jira side or by the ServiceNow side. We don't have time to get this addressed anymore. I hope that this session was useful for each of you. So we talked about setting up your environment, especially your development environment. And the fact that also we worked step by step. Don't do everything at the same time. Just make sure that whenever you set up a synchronization, you make sure that one thing works, and then you do the next thing, and so on. Yeah. Knowing the underlying tracker is really important because there's a lot of business logic, business rules related to ServiceNow, Jira, Zendesk, and so on. I know that it's a lot for 2 hours. We are looking for your feedback, and so that we can improve the sessions for future webinars. And also, we're also thinking about an Exalate Scripting 103, where we can do things like the status orchestration and some more advanced use cases that you can implement with Exalate. So that's it. If you have any additional questions, I'm sure you can reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer them. Again, I'm promoting the community because the Exalate community has more and more users discussing the same use cases that you have. And so as a community, we can build on these answers and making your life simpler. Okay. That's it for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully we can see you again in the new session later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.